Welcome to the Pursuit Chronicles, where tales of adventure, discovery, and passion unfold through every inspiring journey. In the sprawling suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona, where the desert sun scorched the earth and ambition burned hotter than the summer heat, Detective Lieutenant Marcus Caldwell was a name that carried weight. At 45, he was the head of the Economic Crimes Unit in the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, a man whose badge gleamed with authority and whose reputation was a mix of admiration and fear. With his sharp jawline, piercing gray eyes, and a tailored suit that hugged his athletic frame, Marcus cut an imposing figure. To the public, he was a crusader against fraud and corruption. To those in the know, he was a man who played the game of power with ruthless precision. It was the summer of 2020, and the world was gripped by the chaos of the COVID-19 pandemic. Businesses shuttered, supply chains crumbled, and desperation hung in the air like dust after a sandstorm. In Phoenix, the demand for medical supplies, masks, gloves, ventilators, had turned the market into a battlefield. Companies scrambled to secure contracts, and fortunes were made or lost in the blink of an eye. Amid this turmoil, Elena Vasquez, a 38-year-old entrepreneur, had risen as a star in the medical supply industry. Her company, SolMed Solutions, had secured exclusive deals to distribute high-quality PPE from a manufacturer in Nevada, making her a key player in the region's supply chain. Elena was a force of nature, sharp-witted, relentless, and fiercely independent. Born to Mexican immigrants in South Phoenix, she'd clawed her way up from nothing, building SolMed from a garage startup into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a sleek bun, and her eyes, a deep brown, missed nothing. She was used to navigating the cutthroat world of business, but nothing could have prepared her for the predator lurking in the shadows of law enforcement. Marcus Caldwell had first crossed paths with Elena in May 2020 during a routine investigation into price gouging. SolMed had been flagged for its high profit margins, and Marcus's unit was tasked with ensuring compliance. The meeting was brief, professional, but charged with an undercurrent of tension. Marcus, with his disarming smile, had assured Elena that her company was in the clear, but his eyes lingered a fraction too long, calculating, probing. Elena felt it, a subtle shift like the first tremor before an earthquake. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's presence became a constant in Elena's life. He'd show up unannounced at SolMed's warehouse, citing follow-up checks. He'd call her late at night, asking pointed questions about her suppliers, her contracts, her finances. Each interaction was cloaked in the guise of official duty, but Elena sensed something darker, a hunger in Marcus's demeanor that had nothing to do with justice. By July, the pressure on SolMed intensified. Two of Elena's key distributors abruptly canceled their contracts, citing regulatory concerns. Whispers spread that the sheriff's office was auditing her operations. Elena's CFO, a nervous man named Raj Patel, warned her that their cash flow was taking a hit. "We can't afford to lose more partners, Elena," he said, pacing her office. "Something's not right. It's like someone's squeezing us." Elena's instincts screamed that Marcus was behind it. She'd heard rumors about him, stories of businesses coerced into paying consulting fees to avoid trouble, of investigations that mysteriously vanished after hefty donations to certain charities. But Marcus was untouchable, a decorated officer with friends in high places. The sheriff himself had praised Marcus's unwavering commitment in a recent press conference. To challenge him was to risk everything. One sweltering evening, as Elena worked late in her office, her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Ms. Vasquez," Marcus's voice drawled, smooth as whiskey. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "What do you want, Lieutenant?" Elena's tone was clipped, her patience fraying. "I've been reviewing your company's files. There are discrepancies, nothing major but enough to raise eyebrows. I'd hate for this to escalate, especially with the feds sniffing around for fraud." Elena's heart pounded. "What discrepancies? We've complied with every regulation." Marcus chuckled, a sound that sent a chill down her spine. "Compliance is a gray area, Elena. You know that. But I can make this go away. I have influence. There's just one thing I need from you." She gripped the phone tighter. "What?" A gesture of goodwill. Let's call it a contribution to a special project. $1 million, cash. Think of it as an investment in your future. Elena's mind raced. $1 million was a fortune, nearly half of SoulMed's liquid assets. You're extorting me, she said, her voice low. Extortion's a strong word, Marcus replied, unfazed. I'm offering protection. The governor's office is hosting a gala next month, and certain gifts are expected. You help me, I help you. Everyone wins. And if I refuse, a pause heavy with menace, then SoulMed might find itself under a microscope. Audits, seizures, maybe even criminal charges. You're a smart woman, Elena. You know how this works. The line went dead, leaving Elena staring at the phone, her world tilting. She'd built SoulMed through sheer grit, defying every obstacle. But Marcus Caldwell was no ordinary obstacle. He was a predator cloaked in authority, and he'd set his sights on her. The next morning, Elena called an emergency meeting with her inner circle. Raj, her CFO, Carla Ortiz, her operations manager, and Leo Chen, her lead attorney. The conference room was tense, the air thick with the hum of the AC and the weight of unspoken fears. He's shaking us down, Elena said, recounting the call. $1 million or he buries us, Raj paled. Can he do that? I mean legally? Leo, a wiry man with a knack for cutting through bullshit, leaned forward. Legally? No. But he's got the sheriff's office behind him. They can tie us up in investigations for years. We'd be bankrupt before we could fight back. Carla, ever pragmatic, crossed her arms. So we pay him. It's a hit, but we survive. Elena shook her head. If we pay, he'll come back for more. This isn't a one-time deal. He's testing us. Then what? Raj asked, his voice rising. We can't take on the sheriff's office. They'll crush us. Elena's eyes hardened. We don't pay and we don't cower. We fight smart. Leo, start digging into Caldwell's history. If he's done this before, there's a trail. Carla, tighten our security. Cameras, access logs, everything. Raj, get our books. Airtight. If he wants to play dirty, we'll be ready. Leo hesitated. Elena, this is dangerous. Caldwell's connected. If he catches wind, we're investigating him. Then we move fast and quiet, she said. I'm not letting some corrupt cop take everything I've built. As the team dispersed, Elena stood at the window staring out at the desert horizon. She'd faced down competitors, regulators, even her own doubts. But Marcus Caldwell was different. A man who thrived on fear, who wielded power like a blade. She knew this was only the beginning, and the stakes were higher than ever. Over the next week, Marcus's pressure campaign escalated. Inspectors from the sheriff's office swarmed SoulMed's warehouse, citing anonymous tips about irregularities. A major client, a hospital chain in Tucson, backed out of a $2 million deal, hinting at concerns raised by law enforcement. Elena's phone buzzed constantly with calls from restricted numbers, each one a silent threat. Meanwhile, Leo's discreet inquiries began to yield results. A contact in the Arizona Attorney General's office, speaking off the record, revealed that Marcus had been investigated in 2018 for allegedly soliciting bribes from a construction firm. The case was dropped when key witnesses recanted, but the file hinted at a pattern. Businesses coerced, money funneled through shell companies, and Marcus always one step ahead of accountability. Elena also reached out to an old friend, Javier Morales, a former investigative journalist turned private investigator. Javier was a wiry, intense man in his 50s with a nose for corruption and a disdain for authority. Over coffee at a diner on the outskirts of Phoenix, Elena laid out her predicament. Caldwell's dirty, no question, Javier said, scribbling. Notes. But he's smart. He'll have layers of protection, offshore accounts, loyal deputies, maybe even politicians in his pocket. You need hard evidence, Elena, wiretaps, bank records, something undeniable. How do we get that? She asked. Javier grinned, a glint in his eye. We bait him. Let him think you're playing along, then catch him in the act. But it's risky. If he suspects a trap, he'll come for you. Elena nodded, her resolve steeling. Set it up, whatever it takes. By mid-August, Phoenix was a pressure cooker, both, from the heat and the stakes of Elena's gamble. Javier's plan was audacious. Elena would agree to pay Marcus the $1 million, but the cash would be wired to a monitored account, with Javier's team recording every interaction. The trap was set for a meeting at a secluded ranch outside Scottsdale, where Marcus believed he'd collect his prize. On the night of the exchange, Elena drove alone, her heart pounding. The ranch was a sprawling estate, its gates guarded by 2 deputies who waved her through. Marcus waited on the porch, his silhouette framed by the glow of a single lamp. He was dressed casually, jeans, a black shirt, but his presence was as commanding as ever. "You made the right choice," he said as she approached, his smile predatory. Elena forced a nod, clutching a briefcase. "It's all here, but I need guarantees." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You don't make demands, Elena. You're in my world now." Before she could respond, a low rumble echoed in the distance. Headlights pierced the darkness, and 3 SUVs screeched to a halt. Men in tactical gear poured out, shouting commands. "Sheriff's office, hands up!" Elena froze, her mind reeling. This wasn't part of the plan. Marcus's face twisted in rage, but not at the intruders, at her. "You set me up?" he snarled. As the deputies swarmed, Elena realized the trap had backfired. Someone had tipped Marcus off, and now she was caught in his web with no way out. The night air was thick with tension as the deputies' shouts echoed across the Scottsdale ranch. Elena Vasquez stood frozen, the briefcase clutched in her trembling hands, her eyes locked on Marcus Caldwell's furious glare. The SUV's headlights cast harsh beams across the porch, illuminating the scene like a stage set for betrayal. The deputies, clad in tactical vests, moved with precision, their rifles trained on her. This wasn't Javier's trap, it was Marcus's ambush, and Elena had walked right into it. "You thought you could play me?" Marcus hissed, stepping closer, his voice low and venomous. "You're out of your depth, Elena." "I didn't," Elena started, but a deputy cut her off, barking, "Drop the case! Hands where we can see them!" She complied, letting the briefcase fall to the dirt with a dull thud. Her mind raced, piecing together the betrayal. Javier's plan had been meticulous: a wired account, hidden cameras, a team waiting in the wings to record Marcus accepting the $1 million payoff, but someone had tipped him off. The question was who, and how deep the rot went. Marcus smirked, his confidence unshaken despite the chaos. "Search her," he ordered, and a deputy patted Elena down, finding nothing but her phone and keys. Another retrieved the briefcase, snapping it open to reveal stacks of cash. Fake bills, per Javier's instructions, meant to lure Marcus into incriminating himself. "It's counterfeit," the deputy reported, holding up a bundle. Marcus's smirk vanished, replaced by a cold fury. "You really thought you could scam me with play money?" He stepped closer, his breath hot on her face. "You're done, Vasquez. Solmed's finished, and you'll wish you'd paid up." Before Elena could respond, a new voice cut through. The night, a woman's, sharp and authoritative. "Lieutenant Caldwell, stand down." Heads turned as a figure emerged from the shadows of the ranch house. She was tall, with silver blonde hair pulled into a tight chignon, her navy blazer crisp despite the late hour. Captain Adrienne Holt, Marcus's superior in the sheriff's office, strode forward, her expression unreadable. Elena's heart sank. If Holt was here, it meant Marcus's influence ran deeper than she'd feared. "What's going on, Captain?" Marcus asked, his tone shifting to one of calculated deference. Holt's eyes flicked to Elena, then back to Marcus. "I got a tip about an unauthorized operation on this property. Care to explain why you're conducting a sting without my approval?" Marcus didn't flinch. "Ms. Vasquez is under investigation for fraud and attempted bribery. We have evidence." "She tried to pay me off to bury an audit." "That's a lie," Elena snapped, her fear giving way to anger. "He's been extorting me for weeks. He demanded $1 million to protect my company." Holt raised a hand, silencing her. "Enough. Both of you in custody until we sort this out. And you," she pointed at Marcus, "better have paperwork to back this up." As deputies cuffed Elena, her mind churned. Holt's intervention seemed like a lifeline, but something felt off. The captain's tone was too measured, her presence too convenient. Was she part of Marcus's scheme, Or was she genuinely in the dark? Either way, Elena was in handcuffs, her company teetering, and her allies nowhere in sight. The holding cell at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office was a stark contrast to the desert's open expanse, a concrete box with a flickering fluorescent light and the faint smell of bleach. Elena sat on the metal bench, her wrists sore from the cuffs, replaying the night's events. Javier's team was supposed to be monitoring the exchange. Where were they? Had they been compromised, or worse? Hours later, the cell door clanged open and Captain Holt entered alone. She carried a manila folder, her expression as cold as the room. "Ms. Vasquez, you're in a mess. Care to tell me your side?" Elena straightened, wary. "Caldwell's been shaking me down. He threatened to ruin SoulMed unless I paid him $1 million. I was working with a PI to catch him in the act." Holt raised an eyebrow. "A PI? Name? Javier Morales? He's got proof. Recordings, bank trails. Check his office." Holt jotted a note. "And the counterfeit cash?" "A setup to get Caldwell on tape. Javier's team was supposed to record everything." Holt studied her for a long moment, then slid the folder across the bench. "Take a look." Elena opened it, her stomach twisting. Inside were photos of her meeting with Javier at the diner, grainy stills from a security camera. There were also bank statements, her company's, showing large transfers to an offshore account labeled consulting fees. Forged, no doubt, but convincing enough to bury her. "This is fabricated," Elena said, her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. "Caldwell's framing me." "Possible," Holt said, leaning back, "but right now, it's your word against his. And he's got a stellar record while you're a businesswoman with a lot to lose. If you've got evidence, you'd better produce it fast." Elena's mind raced. Javier was her only hope, but if Marcus had anticipated the trap, Javier might be in danger, or worse, he'd betrayed her. "Let me contact my lawyer," she said. Holt nodded. "You'll get your call, but a word of advice. Caldwell's not someone you cross lightly. If you're telling the truth, you're up against more than one man." As Holt left, Elena's resolve hardened. She'd been outmaneuvered, but she wasn't out of the fight. Marcus had underestimated her, and that was his first mistake. By dawn, Elena was released on bail thanks to Leo Chen's legal maneuvering. She returned to SoulMed's headquarters, a sleek office in downtown Phoenix, to find her team in chaos. Carla was fielding calls from panicked clients. Raj was buried in financial reports, and Leo was on the phone with the Attorney General's office trying to stall any formal charges. "We're hemorrhaging contracts," Carla said, slamming down the phone. 3 more hospitals pulled out this morning. They're citing instability." "It's Caldwell," Elena said, her voice grim. "He's tightening the noose." Leo hung up, his face ashen. "The AG's office is opening an investigation into SoulMed. They've got those forged bank statements." "Elena, this is bad." "Where's Javier?" she asked. Carla hesitated. "No one's heard from him since last night. His phone's off and his office is locked." A chill ran through Elena. Javier wasn't the type to vanish, unless he'd been forced to. "I'm going to his office," she said, grabbing her keys. "Carla, keep the clients calm. Raj, lock down our accounts. Leo, find out who in the sheriff's office is feeding Caldwell intel." "Elena, you were just arrested," Leo protested. "If you go poking around, you'll give Caldwell more ammunition." "I'm not sitting here waiting to lose everything," she snapped. "Javier's the key. If he's got evidence, we need it now." Javier's office was a cramped suite in a strip mall on the edge of Tempe, its windows papered with faded "for lease" signs. Elena parked a block away, scanning for surveillance. The lot was empty, but her nerves were on edge. She slipped inside using a spare key Javier had given her, her heart pounding as she navigated the dark hallway. The office was a wreck, files strewn across the floor, drawers yanked open, a computer monitor smashed. Someone had been here, and they weren't subtle. Elena's breath caught as she spotted a blood stain on the carpet, small but fresh. "Javier," she whispered, dread pooling in her gut. She searched frantically, checking for anything salvageable. In a locked drawer, she found a USB drive taped to the underside, labeled MC, Marcus Caldwell. Her hands shook as she pocketed it, but before she could search further, The door creaked open behind her. "Hands up, Miss Vasquez," a voice said, low and menacing. She turned slowly, facing a man in a sheriff's office uniform. He was young, broad-shouldered, with a scar slicing through his left eyebrow. His badge read, Deputy R. Gaines. His gun was drawn, but his eyes held a flicker of unease. "Caldwell sent you?" Elena asked, keeping her voice steady. Gaines didn't answer, but his grip on the gun tightened. "You're coming with me." "I'm not the enemy," she said, taking a cautious step forward. "Caldwell's using you. Whatever he's promised, he'll burn you when he's done." "Shut up," Gaines snapped, but his voice wavered. "Move." Elena's mind raced. Gaines was a weak link, someone Marcus had likely coerced or bought. If she could exploit that, she might get out alive. "I have evidence," she said, patting her pocket. "Proof Caldwell's dirty. Let me go and I'll make sure you're protected." Gaines hesitated, his gun lowering a fraction. "You're lying." "Am I?" She held his gaze. "Why's Javier missing? Why's this office trashed? Caldwell's cleaning house, and you're next." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Gaines's radio crackled, and Marcus's voice came through, sharp and impatient. "Gaines, report. You got her?" Gaines's eyes darted to the radio, then back to Elena. In that split second, she saw her chance. She lunged, grabbing a heavy stapler from the desk and swinging it at his wrist. The gun clattered to the floor, and Elena bolted for the door. "Her heart in her throat! Stop!" Gaines shouted, scrambling after her. But she was already out, sprinting across the parking lot to her car. She peeled out, tires screeching, as Gaines fired a wild shot that pinged off the asphalt. Elena drove aimlessly, her pulse racing, until she reached a quiet diner on the outskirts of Mesa. She parked in the back, checked the USB drive, and plugged it into her laptop. The files were encrypted, but one document was accessible, a ledger detailing payments from various businesses to a shell company called Desert Horizon LLC. The amounts were staggering, and Marcus's initials appeared next to several entries. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it was a start. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're running out of time, Elena. Pay up or SoulMed burns." She stared at the screen, her anger flaring. Marcus was relentless, but he'd made a mistake. He'd underestimated her resolve. She texted Javier's burner phone, a long shot. "Where are you? Found MC files. Need you." Minutes later, a reply. "Safe. Meet me at Red Mountain, midnight." "Come alone." Relief flooded her, tempered by suspicion. Was it really Javier or another trap? She couldn't trust anyone. Not Holt, not Gaines, maybe not even her own team. But she had the USB drive, and she had her wits. If Marcus wanted a war, she'd give him one. That night, under a moonless sky, Elena drove to Red Mountain, a rugged expanse of desert north of Phoenix. The meeting spot was a derelict ranger station, its windows boarded up, surrounded by mesquite and saguaro. She parked a quarter-mile away, tucking a pocket knife into her boot and gripping a flashlight. The USB drive was hidden in her jacket, a backup copy stashed at SoulMed. The station loomed in the darkness, its silhouette eerie against the starry sky. Elena approached cautiously, her senses on high alert. A figure stepped from the shadows, and she tensed, ready to run. "Elena!" Javier's voice rasped, low and urgent. He looked like hell, his face bruised, one eye swollen shut, his jacket torn. "You okay, Javier? What happened?" she whispered, rushing to him. Marcus's goons jumped me after the ranch. They knew about the setup. Someone on your team's dirty. Her stomach dropped. "Who?" "No time. You got the drive?" She nodded, pulling it out. "It's encrypted, but there's a ledger. Payments, shell companies, Marcus's initials." Javier's eyes gleamed. "That's our ticket. I've got a contact in the FBI, someone clean. We get this to her, Marcus is done." Before Elena could respond, a low hum broke the silence. An engine approaching fast. Headlights flared, and two black SUVs roared into view, kicking up dust. Javier grabbed her arm. "Run!" They sprinted into the desert, thorns tearing at their clothes as shouts erupted behind them. Gunfire cracked, and Elena ducked, her heart pounding. Marcus had found them, and this time he wasn't playing games. The desert night was a blur of chaos as Elena Vasquez and Javier Morales sprinted through the thorny scrub of Red Mountain. Bullets whizzed past, kicking up dirt as the roar of SUV engines grew closer. Elena's lungs burned, her boots slipping. On loose gravel, but fear and adrenaline drove her forward. Javier, battered but relentless, kept pace, his hand gripping her arm to steady her. "Keep moving!" he hissed, pulling her toward a cluster of boulders. "They're closing in!" Elena's mind raced, the USB drive in her jacket a leaden weight. It held the key to exposing Marcus Caldwell's corruption, a ledger linking him to illicit payments. But it was useless if they didn't survive the night. The black SUVs, unmarked but unmistakably sheriff's office, were hunting them like prey. Someone had betrayed their location, and Javier's warning echoed in her head. "Someone on your team's dirty." They ducked behind a massive sandstone outcrop, the jagged rock shielding them from the gunfire. Javier crouched, peering into the darkness. 2 vehicles, at least 6 guys. Marcus isn't messing around. "Who sold us out?" Elena whispered, her voice hoarse. "Carla? Raj? Leo?" Javier shook his head. "No time to guess. We need to lose them and get to my FBI contact. She's in Flagstaff, waiting for the drive." "Flagstaff's 3 hours away," Elena said, her heart sinking. "We'll never make it." "We will if we're smart." Javier pulled a small device from his pocket, a GPS jammer, its red light blinking. "This'll screw with their tracking for a bit. There's an old mine shaft 1/2 mile east. If we can reach it, we can hide till they pass." Elena nodded, trusting his instincts. Javier had survived worse than this, and she had no choice but to follow his lead. They waited for a lull in the gunfire, then bolted, weaving through cacti and scrub. The desert was merciless, its thorns snagging their clothes, but the mine shaft loomed ahead, a dark maw in the hillside, partially boarded up. They slipped inside, the air turning cool and damp. Javier pulled a flashlight from his pack, its beam revealing rusted tracks and crumbling walls. "Stay close," he said, leading her deeper. The sound of pursuit faded, replaced by the drip of water and their own ragged breathing. As they caught their breath, Elena's mind churned. "If there's a mole, they knew about the ranch, the USB drive, everything. How deep does this go?" Javier's face was grim. "Caldwell's not just a dirty cop. He's got a network, deputies, bureaucrats, maybe even someone in the governor's office. That ledger? It's a map of his empire." "Then why come after us himself?" she asked. "Why not send his goons and stay clean?" "Because you're a threat," Javier said, his eyes intense. "Solmed's a cash cow and you didn't roll over. He needs to crush you to send a message to anyone else who might fight back." Elena clenched her fists, anger surging. She'd built Solmed from nothing, defying every odd, only to be targeted by a predator in a badge. "We're not just surviving. This," she said. "We're taking him down." Javier grinned, despite the bruises. "That's the spirit. But first, we—" A faint scrape echoed from the tunnel's entrance, cutting him off. Javier doused the flashlight, plunging them into darkness. Elena held her breath, her hand slipping to the pocket knife in her boot. Footsteps crunched closer, deliberate and heavy. A beam of light swept the tunnel, and a voice called out. Deputy Gaines, the scarred officer from Javier's office. "Vasquez. Morales, you're only making this worse. Come out and we'll talk." Javier pressed a finger to his lips, signaling silence. He motioned for Elena to follow him deeper into the mine. They moved carefully, avoiding loose rocks until they reached a narrow side passage. The air was stale, and the walls glistened with moisture, but it offered cover. Gaines's voice grew fainter, but his presence was a reminder of Marcus's reach. "He's tracking us," Elena whispered. "How?" Javier frowned, checking his gear. "They must have tagged one of us at the ranch. Your phone, maybe?" Elena pulled it out, her heart sinking. "It's been off since the arrest." "Doesn't matter. They can ping the battery." Javier took it, smashed it against the wall, and ground the pieces under his heel. "Better safe." They waited in the passage, the silence oppressive, until Javier deemed it safe to move. The mine was a labyrinth, but he navigated with the confidence of someone who'd used it before. "Smugglers hid out here in the 90s, he explained. "There's an exit near a dry wash. We'll head there, then steal a car to Flagstaff." Elena nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. Javier was her ally, but his disappearance, the botched ranch setup, and now this chase, it all felt too orchestrated. Was he playing a deeper game? She pushed the thought aside. For now, she needed him. They emerged from the mine at dawn, the desert sky streaked with pink and gold. The wash was a shallow trench, lined with mesquite, and a dusty pickup truck sat, parked nearby, likely a rancher's, left unattended. Javier hotwired it in under a minute, and they roared toward the I-17, the highway to Flagstaff. Elena clutched the USB drive, its weight a reminder of the stakes. "Tell me about your FBI contact," she said, breaking the silence. "Special Agent Naomi Kessler," Javier said, his eyes on the road. "She's with the Public Corruption Unit. Clean, sharp, hates dirty cops. I worked with her on a case in Tucson years ago. She'll know how to handle the ledger. Can we trust her?" Javier's jaw tightened. "If we can't, we're dead anyway." The drive was tense, the desert giving way to pine forests as they climbed toward Flagstaff. Elena's thoughts drifted to her team. Carla, loyal but pragmatic, could have been coerced. Raj, always nervous, might have cracked under pressure. Leo, with his legal connections, had the most to gain by flipping. The betrayal stung. But she couldn't dwell on it. Not yet. They reached Flagstaff by mid-morning, pulling into a nondescript motel on the edge of town. Naomi Kessler was waiting in room 12, her presence announced by a curt text, "Here. No tricks." Kessler was a wiry woman in her 40s with close-cropped black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She wore a plain gray suit, her badge clipped to her belt. The room was sparse, 2 beds, a chip table, and a coffee maker that hadn't worked in years. She locked the door behind them, her expression all business. "Morales, you look like hell," she said, then turned to Elena. "Vasquez, show me what you've got." Elena handed over the USB drive. "It's encrypted, but there's a ledger. Payments from businesses to a shell company, Desert Horizon LLC. Caldwell's initials are on it." Kessler plugged the drive into a secure laptop, her fingers flying over the keys. "Strong encryption," she muttered. "Military grade. Whoever set this up isn't an amateur." "Can you crack it?" Javier asked. "Given time. But this ledger's a start." She pulled up the accessible file, scanning the entries. Hundreds of thousands, funneled through multiple accounts. "If Caldwell's tied to this, it's big, but we need more. Wiretaps, witnesses, something to pin him down." Elena leaned forward. "He's been extorting me for $1 million. Threatened to destroy my company, SoulMed, if I didn't pay. He's got deputies doing his dirty work, maybe even someone in my team." Kessler's eyes narrowed. "You've got a mole?" "Someone tipped him off about our sting," Javier said. "We were set up." Kessler nodded, processing. "Okay, I'll get this to my team in Phoenix. We'll start pulling records on Desert Horizon and cross-reference Caldwell's finances. But you two need to lay low. He's got eyes everywhere." "Where?" Elena asked. "He found us at Red Mountain. He'll find us here." "I've got a safe house in Sedona," Kessler said. "Remote, off-grid. Stay there until I can build a case. And Vasquez, get me names. Anyone in your circle who might have flipped." Elena hesitated. Accusing her team felt like a betrayal, but survival trumped loyalty. "Carla Ortiz, my operations manager. Raj Patel, CFO, Leo Chen, attorney. They all knew about the sting." Kessler jotted the names. "I'll run background checks. Morales, you're with me. We'll move at dusk." As Kessler stepped out to make a call, Elena turned to Javier. "You sure about her?" "She's our best shot," he said, but his eyes held a flicker of doubt. "Just keep your guard up." The safe house was a weathered cabin nestled in Oak Creek Canyon, surrounded by red rock cliffs and pines. It was dusk when they arrived, the sky a blaze of orange. Kessler's team, 2 agents, both stone-faced, swept the perimeter, then left, to set up surveillance. Inside, the cabin was sparse but functional, a wood stove, a generator, and a sat phone for emergencies. Elena paced, the weight of the past 48 hours crushing her. SoulMed was unraveling, her team was compromised, and Marcus. Caldwell was a ghost, always one step ahead. She checked the sat phone, hoping for a signal to reach Carla or Leo, but it was dead. Jammed, maybe, or just faulty. Javier was outside scouting the perimeter when Kessler returned, her face grim. "We've got a problem," she said, holding up her laptop. The ledger's legit, but Desert Horizon isn't just a shell company. It's tied to a network of LLCs, some linked to political donors in Phoenix. This goes higher than Caldwell. Elena's blood ran cold. "How high?" "Potentially the governor's office," Kessler said. "Or someone close. We're talking campaign funds, kickbacks, the works. If Caldwell's a cog, he's a well-protected one." "Then why's he so desperate to stop me?" Elena asked. "Because you're the loose thread," Kessler said. "SoulMed's a high-profile target. If you go public, it unravels everything. He needs you silenced, permanently." Before Elena could respond, Javier burst in, his face pale. "We've got company. 3 SUVs a mile out, coming fast," Kessler cursed, grabbing her radio. "Perimeter team, report," Static answered. The agents outside were gone, dead or compromised. Elena's heart pounded as headlights pierced the cabin's windows, engines roaring closer. "Back exit!" Kessler barked, drawing her Glock. "Move!" They sprinted for the rear door, but gunfire erupted, shattering the windows. Elena dove behind a couch, Javier pulling her down as bullets tore through the walls. Kessler returned fire, her shots precise but outnumbered. The cabin was a death trap, and Marcus's men were closing in. "Javier, the drive!" Elena shouted, tossing it to him. "Get it to Kessler's team." He caught it, nodding. "Stay with her. I'll draw them off." Before she could protest, Javier bolted for the front, firing his pistol to draw attention. Kessler grabbed Elena's arm, pulling her toward the back. "Go! Now!" They stumbled into the night, the canyon a maze of shadows. Gunfire echoed behind them, Javier's fate uncertain. Elena's mind screamed with questions. Who was the mole? How had Marcus found them? And how high did his corruption reach? As they fled into the darkness, a new sound rose. A helicopter, its searchlight sweeping the canyon. Friend or foe, Elena couldn't tell, but one thing was clear. The noose was tightening, and time was running out. The helicopter's searchlight sliced through the darkness of Oak Creek Canyon, its beam sweeping over the red rock cliffs like a predator's gaze. Elena Vasquez stumbled through the underbrush, Special Agent Naomi Kessler dragging her forward as gunfire echoed from the besieged safe house behind them. The air was thick with the scent of pine and gunpowder, and Elena's heart pounded as she processed the chaos. Javier Morales had stayed behind, drawing Marcus Caldwell's men to give them a chance to escape, but his fate was uncertain. The USB drive, with its damning ledger of Marcus's corruption, was with him, if he survived. "Keep moving," Kessler hissed, her Glock still in hand as she navigated the rocky terrain. "That chopper's not ours." Elena's legs burned, her mind a whirlwind of fear and fury. The safe house ambush proved Marcus's reach was vast. Deputies, political, allies, maybe even someone in the FBI. Javier's warning about a mole in her team gnawed at her. Carla, Raj, or Leo, who had betrayed her? And how had Marcus tracked them to Sedona so quickly? They ducked into a shallow ravine, the canyon walls shielding them from the helicopter's light. Kessler crouched, scanning the sky. "We need to reach the highway. I've got a backup team in Cottonwood, but we're on our own until then." "What about Javier?" Elena asked, her voice raw. "We can't leave him." Kessler's face was grim. "He knew the risks. If he's alive, he'll get the drive to my people. Right now, we stay focused on surviving." Elena wanted to argue, but the chopper's roar grew louder, its light sweeping closer. They scrambled deeper into the ravine, thorns tearing at their clothes, until they reached a narrow ledge overlooking a dry creek bed. Kessler checked her. Radio, but it was dead. Jammed, just like the sat phone in the cabin. "Caldwell's got tech," she muttered. "This isn't just a dirty cop. He's got resources." "Then we hit him where it hurts," Elena said, her resolve hardening. "That ledger ties him to Desert Horizon LLC. If we get it to the press, he's exposed, no matter who's protecting him." Kessler nodded, a flicker of respect in her eyes. Bold but risky. We need to crack the drive's encryption first. My team in Phoenix can do it, but we have to get there alive. A distant shout interrupted them, Marcus's men, fanning out through the canyon. Elena's pocketknife felt woefully inadequate, but her anger was a weapon of its own. She'd built Solmed through sheer grit, and she wouldn't let Marcus destroy it. "Let's move," she said, matching Kessler's pace. They trekked for hours, the helicopter eventually peeling off, its fuel or patience exhausted. By midnight, they reached a rural gas station on the outskirts of Cottonwood, its neon sign flickering. Kessler hotwired a battered sedan in the lot, and they drove south toward Phoenix, the desert night swallowing them. Elena's body ached, but her mind was sharp, piecing together the puzzle. The mole had to be someone close, someone who knew about the ranch sting, the USB drive, and their escape to Sedona. "Run me through your team again," Kessler said, her eyes on the road. "Ortiz, Patel, Chen, motives, weaknesses, anything," Elena sighed, the weight of suspicion heavy. "Carla Ortiz, operations manager, loyal but practical. She's got a kid in college, money's tight. Marcus could have offered her a payout. Raj Patel, CFO, nervous, risk-averse. He's been freaking out about Solmed's finances, easy to pressure. Leo Chen, attorney, smart, connected, but ambitious. If he's playing both sides, he'd cover his tracks." Kessler frowned. "Chen's the most likely. Lawyers have access and ambition makes people sloppy, but we need proof." Elena's phone was gone, smashed in the mine, but she remembered Leo's late-night calls, his insistence on handling the Attorney General's office himself. Had he been feeding Marcus intel? The thought made her sick, but she couldn't rule it out. They reached Phoenix at dawn, pulling into a nondescript warehouse in an industrial park. Kessler's backup team, 3 agents, all vetted, greeted them with coffee and laptops. The warehouse was a makeshift command center, its walls lined with monitors and encrypted comms. Agent Daniel Park, a tech specialist with a perpetual scowl, took the lead on the USB drive. "It's AES-256 encryption," Park said, plugging it in. "Tough, but not impossible. I'll need a few hours." "Do it in 2, Kessler snapped. "Caldwell's not waiting." Elena paced, her nerves fraying. She needed to contact her team to warn them or confront them, but Kessler forbade it. "Your mole's still out there," she said. "One call could tip Caldwell off." Instead, Elena studied the ledger's accessible file, projected on a screen. The payments to Desert Horizon LLC were staggering. Millions over 2 years, funneled from businesses across Arizona. Some names were familiar, a construction firm, a tech startup, even a hospital chain. Marcus's initials, MC, appeared. Next entries totaling $1.2 million, but other initials, GH-TK-LW, hinted at a broader network. Was GH the governor's chief of staff? TK a state senator? The scope was dizzying. Park's voice broke her thoughts. "Got something. The ledger's tied to an email server, hosted offshore. I pulled a fragment of correspondence. Look." Displayed a message dated 3 weeks ago. "Vasquez is a problem. Handle it or the gala funds are at risk. LW." Elena's blood ran cold. The gala. Caldwell mentioned a governor's gala, said the $1 million was a gift for it. Kessler's eyes narrowed. The Arizona Recovery Gala next week. Big donors, political heavyweights. If Caldwell's funneling extorted cash into it, it's a slush fund for someone powerful. "Who's LW?" Elena asked. "We'll find out," Kessler said. "Park, keep digging. Vasquez, you're with me. We're hitting Caldwell's office." Elena balked. "His office? In the sheriff's department? That's suicide." "Not if we're smart," Kessler said. "He's arrogant. He'll have records, bank details, contacts, something. We go in quiet while he's distracted hunting us." The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office was a fortress of glass and steel in downtown Phoenix, its lobby bustling despite the early hour. Kessler, posing as a federal auditor, flashed her badge to get past security, while Elena, disguised in a maintenance uniform, slipped in through a service entrance. The plan was risky. Kessler would distract Captain Adrian Holt, Marcus's superior, while Elena searched his office for evidence. Elena's heart pounded as she navigated the maintenance corridors, a stolen keycard granting her access to the administrative wing. Marcus's office was on the 5th floor, a corner suite with a view of the city. She slipped inside, locking the door behind her. The room was pristine, mahogany desk, framed commendations, a photo of Marcus shaking hands with the governor. But it was the locked file cabinet that drew her eye. Using a paperclip and her pocket knife, she picked the lock, her hands steady despite the adrenaline. Inside were folders labeled with company names, including SolMed. Hers contained forged invoices, doctored emails, and a memo implicating her in fraud. It was a kill shot designed to bury her if she went public, but another folder caught her attention. Desert Horizon. It held bank statements, wire transfer receipts, and a list of names. Donors to the gala, with amounts next to them. One name stood out. Leonard Weiss, L.W., with a $500,000 contribution. Weiss was the governor's campaign manager, a shadowy figure known for his ruthless tactics. If he was L.W., Marcus wasn't just a rogue cop. He was a cog in a machine that reached the state's highest levels. Elena snapped photos with a burner phone Kessler had given her, her pulse racing. She was about to leave when the door handle rattled. She dove under the desk, clutching the phone as the door swung open. "Vasquez," Marcus's voice drawled, cold and amused. "You're predictable." She froze, her breath shallow. How had he known? The mole? Leo, it had to be Leo. He'd been tracking her every move, feeding Marcus her plans. Marcus stepped closer, his boots stopping inches from the desk. "You think you can outsmart me? That drive your little FBI friend? None of it matters. You're done." Elena's hand tightened on the pocket knife. She had one chance. As Marcus leaned down, she lunged, slashing at his ankle. He roared, stumbling, and she bolted, slamming into him to reach the door. His hand grazed her jacket, but she twisted free, sprinting down the hall. Alarms blared as she hit the stairwell, Marcus's shouts echoing behind her. She burst into the lobby, where Kessler was waiting, her face pale. "Move!" Kessler barked, shoving her toward the exit. They dove into a waiting van, tires screeching as they peeled out. "He knew I was there," Elena gasped, handing Kessler the burner phone. "Weiss, Leonard Weiss, is L.W. He's the governor's campaign manager." Kessler's jaw tightened. "Then we're not just fighting Caldwell. We're fighting the whole damn machine." Back at the warehouse, Park had cracked the USB drive's encryption, revealing a trove of data. Emails, audio recordings, even a video of Marcus meeting with Weiss at a private club. The evidence was damning, proof of extortion, money laundering, and a scheme to funnel funds into the governor's re-election campaign. But one file stopped Elena cold, an email from Leo Chen to Marcus, detailing the ranch sting and Javier's involvement. "Leo," Elena whispered, her heart breaking. "He sold us out." Kessler scanned the email. "Looks like Caldwell promised him a cut of SolMed's assets once it was seized. Your lawyer's dirty, Vasquez." Elena's anger flared. Leo had been her friend, her confidant. His betrayal cut deeper than Marcus's threats. "Where is he?" "We'll deal with him," Kessler said. "But first we take this to the press. The Arizona Republic's got a reporter, Sarah Nguyen, who's been sniffing around Caldwell for years. She'll run with this." Elena nodded. But her mind was on Leo. She wanted answers, why he'd turned, how far he'd gone. "I need to confront him," she said, "before we go public." Kessler hesitated, then relented. "Fine, but we do it my way. No risks." That night, Elena and Kessler staked out Leo's condo in Scottsdale, a sleek high-rise with a view of Camelback Mountain. Kessler's team had tracked his phone, confirming he was home. Elena, wired with a mic, approached alone, her anger tempered by a need for closure. Leo answered the door, his face pale, eyes darting. "Elena, what the hell? Save it!" she snapped, pushing past him. "I know you're working with Caldwell. You sold me out." Leo's shoulders slumped, guilt etched into his features. "I didn't have a choice. He had dirt on me. Tax, evasion, old cases. He said he'd ruin me." "You could have come to me," Elena said, her voice trembling. "We were a team." "I'm sorry," Leo whispered, tears in his eyes. "I thought I could control it." Before Elena could respond, the window shattered and a flashbang exploded, blinding her. Masked figures stormed in, shouting. Kessler's voice crackled through the mic. "Ambush! Get down!" Elena dove behind a couch, her ears ringing as gunfire erupted. Leo screamed, collapsing, blood pooling beneath him. The attackers were Caldwell's men, their precision military grade. Kessler burst in, firing, but the odds were grim. In the chaos, Elena crawled to Leo, shaking him. "Who else is with Caldwell? Tell me!" "Captain Holt," Leo gasped, his voice fading. "She's in on it." He went limp, and Elena's world tilted. Holt, the one who'd seemed impartial, was part of Marcus's network. The realization hit like a freight train, but there was no time to process. Kessler grabbed her, dragging her toward the fire escape as the condo burned. They escaped into the night, the city a blur of lights and sirens. Elena's mind reeled. Leo was dead, Holt was a traitor, and Marcus was untouchable. But she had the evidence, and she had Kessler. The Arizona Republic was their last hope, but as they sped toward the newspaper's office, a new threat loomed. A black SUV tailing them, its windows tinted. "Caldwell's not done," Kessler said, flooring the gas. "Hold on." The chase was on, Phoenix's streets a battleground, and Elena knew the final showdown was coming, whether she was ready or not. The streets of Phoenix blurred past as Special Agent Naomi Kessler floored the gas, the van's engine roaring under the strain. Elena Vasquez gripped the door handle, her eyes locked on the black SUV tailing them, its tinted windows concealing Marcus Caldwell's enforcers. The city's neon lights streaked by, a stark contrast to the darkness closing in. Leo Chen's death, Captain Adrian Holt's betrayal, and the damning evidence on the USB drive weighed on Elena's mind. They were racing to the Arizona Republic's office to hand the evidence to reporter Sarah Nguyen, their last chance to expose Marcus's corruption before he silenced them for good. "Hold on!" Kessler shouted, swerving into an alley. The SUV followed, its headlights glaring like a predator's eyes. A second vehicle joined the chase, boxing them in. Gunfire cracked, shattering the van's rear window, and Elena ducked, glass raining around her. "They're hurting us," Kessler said, her voice grim. "Caldwell's not taking chances." Elena's heart pounded, but her resolve was iron. She'd lost Leo, nearly lost Javier, and watched Solmed teeter on the brink. Marcus had underestimated her, and that was his fatal mistake. "Get us to Nguyen," she said. "No matter what." Kessler nodded, yanking the wheel to dodge a burst of bullets. "There's a parking garage 2 blocks up. We'll lose them there." The van screeched into the multi-level garage, its tires squealing on the concrete. Kessler wove through the tight turns, the SUV struggling to keep pace. On the 4th level, she slammed the brakes, spinning the van to block the ramp. "Out!" she barked, grabbing her Glock and the burner phone with the evidence photos. Elena followed, sprinting toward the stairwell as the SUVs roared closer. They descended to the street, emerging a block from the Arizona Republic's office, a sleek building with glass walls reflecting the city's glow. Kessler's radio crackled, her backup team pinned down by Marcus's men across town. They were on their own. Inside, Sarah Nguyen was waiting in a cluttered newsroom, her desk buried in papers. She was a wiry woman in her 30s, with sharp eyes and a reputation for breaking corruption stories. "Kessler?" she asked, standing as they burst in. "Nguyen, take this," Kessler said, tossing her the burner phone. "Photos, emails, a ledger. Proof. Caldwell's extorting businesses and funneling money to Leonard Weiss for the governor's campaign. Run it now." Nguyen scrolled through the files, her expression hardening. "This is explosive. Weiss is untouchable, and Caldwell's a hero to half the state." "You sure about this?" "Caldwell's got a kill squad after us," Elena snapped. "Leo Chen's dead. Javier Morales is missing. You want more bodies or you want the story?" Nguyen nodded, already typing. "Give me an hour. I'll get it online and to our print run. But you need to disappear. Caldwell's got eyes everywhere." As Nguyen worked, Kessler's phone buzzed. A text from Agent Park. "Javier's alive. Got the drive to our Phoenix team. Holt's in custody. Move fast." Elena's relief was tempered by dread. Holt's arrest was a blow to Marcus, but he was still out there, and the second SUV had vanished during the chase. "Where's Caldwell?" she asked Kessler. "Probably regrouping," Kessler said, checking her Glock. "But he'll come for you. You're the face of this fight." "Then let him," Elena said, her voice steady. "I'm done running." Nguyen's story hit the Arizona Republic's website at 2 a.m., a bombshell headlined, "Sheriff's Lieutenant Linked to Extortion Scheme, Governor's Campaign Implicated." The article detailed Marcus's payments through Desert Horizon, LLC, his threats against SolMed, and Leonard Weiss's role in funneling funds to the Arizona Recovery Gala. The photos from Marcus's office and the decrypted USB drive's emails were front and center, irrefutable proof of a conspiracy reaching the state's highest levels. Social media exploded, the story trending nationwide by dawn. Ex-posts from Arizona residents demanded investigations, while others shared rumors of similar shakedowns. The governor's office issued a vague denial, but Weiss was conspicuously silent. The sheriff's office announced an internal review, but Marcus Caldwell was nowhere to be found. Elena and Kessler holed up in a safe house on the edge of Glendale, a nondescript bungalow guarded by Kessler's team. Javier arrived at sunrise, battered but alive, his arm in a sling. "Caldwell's men had me pinned at the canyon," he said, sinking into a chair. "Got out with the drive barely. Park's team cracked the rest. Recordings, bank trails, even a wiretap of Weiss and Holt." Elena hugged him, relief flooding her. "You're a stubborn bastard, Morales." "Takes one to know one," he grinned, wincing. "Holt's singing. To the feds. She claims Marcus blackmailed her into covering his tracks. Says Weiss was the real brains, pulling strings for the governor." "Then why's Marcus still free?" Elena asked, her anger flaring. SolMed was in limbo, her client spooked, and Marcus's shadow loomed large. Kessler checked her phone. "He's gone dark, but we've got APBs out. He can't hide forever." Elena wasn't so sure. Marcus was a predator, and predators didn't slink away. They struck back. She turned to Javier. "What's on the wiretap?" "Enough to bury them," he said. "Weiss talking to Holt about neutralizing you. Marcus bragging about SolMed's cash flow. It's all with the feds now, but Nguyen's got a copy." As they planned their next move, Kessler's radio crackled. "Agent Kessler, we've got movement. Black SUV 2 blocks out, circling." Elena's stomach twisted. "It's him." Kessler drew her Glock, signaling her team. "Lock it down, Vasquez Morales, stay low." The safe house erupted into controlled chaos, agents taking positions, blinds snapped shut. Elena crouched behind a couch, her pocketknife in hand, useless against gunfire, but a reminder of her resolve. Javier, despite his injuries, checked a pistol Kessler had given him. The SUV didn't attack. Instead, a single figure emerged, striding toward the house under a white flag, a handkerchief tied to a stick. It was Marcus Caldwell, alone, his suit pristine despite the manhunt. Kessler's team held fire, wary of a trap. "He wants to talk," Kessler said, peering through a scope. "This is nuts." "Let him in," Elena said, standing. "I want to face him." Kessler hesitated, then nodded. "On our terms. Cuff him first." 2 agents frisked Marcus at the door, removing a concealed pistol and a knife. He entered, hands cuffed, his gray eyes locking onto Elena with a mix of amusement and menace. "You've been busy, Vasquez," he drawled, sitting as if he owned the room. "You're done, Caldwell," Elena said, her voice cold. "The Republic story, the feds, Holt's confession, it's over." Marcus chuckled, unfazed. "You think a story stops me? Weiss is a scapegoat and the governor's clean. I've got friends you'll never touch." "Then why are you—" "Here," Kessler snapped, her Glock trained on him. "To offer a deal," Marcus said, leaning forward. "You've got the drive, the photos, impressive. But you don't have the full picture. I can give you the real players. Senators, CEOs, the ones who make Weiss look like a pawn. In exchange, I walk." Elena's anger boiled. "You extorted me, killed Leo, hunted us. Why should I trust you?" "Because you're out of moves," Marcus said, his smile predatory. "The feds can't protect you forever. My people are patient. You want SolMed to survive? You need me." Javier scoffed. "He's bluffing. He's got nothing." But Elena saw the glint in Marcus's eyes, a man who thrived on control, even when cornered. She leaned closer, her voice low. "You underestimated me, Marcus. I didn't just survive, I exposed you, and I'm not done." Before Marcus could respond, Kessler's radio crackled. "Agent Kessler, we've got incoming. 3 vehicles, armed, half a mile out." Marcus's smile widened. "Told you. My people don't quit." The room tensed, agents scrambling to fortify the safe house. Kessler uncuffed Marcus, shoving him toward a corner. "You're staying where I can see you." Elena's mind raced. Marcus's allies were closing in, but Nguyen's story had shifted. The tide. The public was watching, and the feds were moving. She grabbed Javier. "Get Nguyen on the line. Tell her Marcus is here, and his men are attacking. Livestream it if you can." Javier nodded, dialing. Elena turned to Kessler. "We hold them off until backup arrives. The feds are coming, right?" "They'd better," Kessler said, checking her ammo. The attack came like a storm. Windows shattered as gunfire tore through the safe house, agents returning fire from fortified positions. Elena ducked behind a steel cabinet, her heart pounding as bullets pinged around her. Marcus, still in the corner, watched with eerie calm, as if savoring the chaos. Javier patched Nguyen through on a secure line, her voice crackling. "I'm live on X, streaming this. The world's watching, Vasquez. Hold on." The broadcast galvanized Elena. She crawled to Kessler, who was firing through a broken window. "How long?" "Feds are 10 minutes out," Kessler grunted. "We just need to—" A rocket-propelled grenade slammed into the front wall, the explosion shaking the house. Dust and debris choked the air, and Elena's ears rang. Kessler dragged her to cover, shouting orders. The attackers were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. In the chaos, Marcus moved, slipping his cuffs, somehow unlocked, and lunging for a fallen agent's rifle. Elena saw it too late. "Kessler!" she screamed. Marcus fired, clipping Kessler's shoulder. She collapsed, cursing, as Marcus turned the rifle on Elena. "Enough games," he snarled, advancing. "You should have paid up." Elena dove behind the cabinet, her knife tannenbaik, but 6:30 Elena's world narrowed to the barrel of Marcus's rifle, her pulse thundering in her ears. The safe house was a war zone, flames licking the walls, agents fighting to hold the line. Kessler, blood seeping from her shoulder, struggled to rise, her Glock shaking in her hand. Javier, pinned near the back, shouted, "Elena, move!" But she didn't run. Marcus had taken everything, her trust, her allies, her peace. She wouldn't let him take her future. With a surge of defiance, she grabbed a shattered chair leg, hurling it at his face. It struck his temple, staggering him, and she charged, tackling him to the ground. The rifle skidded away, and they grappled, her pocketknife flashing as she slashed his arm. Marcus roared, stronger, trained, but Elena fought with the fury of survival. She drove her knee into his gut, twisting the knife free. He swung, catching her jaw, but she held on, pinning him as sirens wailed in the distance. "The feds were here! Give it up, Marcus!" she gasped, pressing the knife to his throat. "It's over!" His eyes burned with hate, but the fight was draining from him. Kessler staggered to her feet, training her Glock on him. "Drop it!" "Caldwell, you're done!" Agents stormed in, SWAT teams securing the perimeter. Marcus went limp, his empire crumbling as cuffs snapped around his wrists. Elena stumbled back, blood and sweat mingling, her body screaming but her spirit unbroken. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Marcus was indicted on charges of extortion, money laundering, and murder, his network unraveling as Weiss and others turned state's evidence. Holt's testimony sealed his fate, and the governor resigned amid the scandal. Solmed survived, its reputation battered but intact, as Elena rebuilt with Carla and Raj, her trust scarred but resolute. Javier recovered, his scars a badge of honor, and Kessler was promoted, her unit tasked with rooting out corruption statewide. Sarah Nguyen's reporting earned a Pulitzer, her livestream a rallying cry for justice. Elena stood on Solmed's roof one evening, the Phoenix skyline aglow. The desert wind carried the promise of renewal, and she smiled, her father's words echoing. "You're tougher than the toughest storms, Mija." She'd faced the storm and won, not just for herself, but for every underdog who dared to fight. Thieves. City stretched before her, a canvas of grit and glory, and Elena Vasquez was ready for whatever came next. Thank you for joining the Pursuit Chronicles. Keep chasing your dreams and explore new horizons with us.